Okay, good evening. It is August 8th, 2023. This is the meeting of Norwalk's Conservation Commission slash Inland Wetland Agency. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Steve Clocky.
Here.
Ed Halowinko. Here. Heather Breslin.
Here.
Catherine Knight.
Here.
And Amy Richardson.
Here.
Great.
All right,
Thanks.
so you have 5 and a full quorum.
Great. Has anyone called in who would like to make a comment on anything that's not on our agenda today?
Right, so we have a public comment. This is a time where you can comment to the commission regarding general Conservation Commission issues. It's not a time to make a comment on any pending application. So if you want to make a comment on anything but a pending application, you can use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. Give people a minute to do that. I don't see any takers. I think we just have observers this evening.
Okay, great. Moving on then to receipt and discussion, S23-625. Oh, wait.
Nope, you're good. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
25 Stony Brook Road. I believe we got new information and a draft resolution on this one. Is that true?
Yes, and actually, so my I think I'm going to promote. So this is a new application. And if you are, I just promoted one of the people in the attendees to be a panelist. If you are the applicant associated with this application, or if you're the part of the applicant's team, use the raise your hand feature and I'll bring you over as well. Thank you. Just hold on a second. Okay. I think that's everybody. Yes, so this is a single family house with a proposed addition. The residence is adjacent to a 14-acre pond. The property is at 25 Stony Brook Road. The small bump out additions are within the upland review area of the watercourse, and looks like there is someone here. If you want to give a brief kind of overview of the project, that would be great. And then I can share my screen if that's helpful, or you should be able to share your screen if you want to show the site plan.
Yeah, why don't I let Joe Greco, my father-in-law, is the architect here, so he can describe it. He asked you to give a general description of the renovation.
Oh, hi.
Okay.
I was a builder, retired, but my daughter bought a house, so you could figure out the rest. and what we're doing, it's an existing house that's been there for 75 years, and she has 2 children now, so they need more space for the family. So we're going to bump out the front 5 feet, and the right side away from the pond 7 feet, and go up. There's a story there now, but we're going to enlarge that too on the 2nd story as well.
So this is Stony Brook Road, and this is the pond on the southern end of the property, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then so your driveway comes in, and so here's the existing house, and so these are the additions that will be first.
Yes.
1 and 2 story additions, and then this part is the existing house, which will stay, and then a 2nd story addition on top of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also in the front, you can see a septic system. That's the reserve area. There's not going to be any septic work at all on this site.
Okay.
That's just
But the reserve is required by the health department to do the additions.
yes, we got the okay for that.
All right, I can do a location map if that's of interest to commissioners. Stony Brook is kind of in the middle of the city. It's a relatively straightforward application. They are within the upland review area of the watercourse. The required reserve septic system, even though it's not required to be physically installed for the addition, you are with your permitting process effectively approving that for the next 10 years. If it does need to be installed, the inland wetland regulations require that any proposed component of a septic system within your upland review area, other than a septic tank replacement, has to go before you. And so that's one of the main reasons why it's before you tonight.
Are we interested in knowing where any piles of dirt are going? I'm not sure I see that on the proposed plan.
Right, I'd say it's not really a site plan, it's more of a location plan of improvements.
Okay.
So one of the questions is for the excavation related to the proposed additions where you'll need to expand the footprint. Is there a plan for either offsite removal of that excavated material? Or would you be placing it on the site somewhere?
Well, most of the majority of it will be off-site removal. And then we're gonna try to store whatever we need for backfilling to the right of the house, which would be the north side, I believe. Yeah,
Up by the shed?
no, just to the right. If you see the addition, the lines for the addition, just 10 feet away from that. So,
Kind of in this,
Okay, if we could get that, if we could get that
None
added to the drawing, I think that would be a good thing.
okay,
And as well as showing some straw bales or erosion silt fence and things like that.
yeah, we have silk fence on here. I think you can see that on there.
See that, but we'd also want it around the pile of dirt too.
Yeah, are there any other areas you think I could store some dirt or just, you know?
I mean, we'd probably prefer it stay as far away from the pond
Yes.
as possible. I suppose on the east side of the house, maybe there's some room there where the proposed septic is going, but I mean, obviously that's serving another purpose, so.
so your entrance would be coming in from that side anyway, right?
Yes. Yes,
Okay. Do any other commissioners have thoughts or questions? All right, well, we're not making any decisions on this tonight. We're just taking in the information. And I suppose, as Alexis says, it's pretty straightforward. So unless someone has thoughts on any other additions they want to see on the drawings or whatnot, I think we'll just say thanks for joining us tonight. And
I believe Otto's raising his hand.
oh,
Oh,
who's
not
raising their
Otto.
hand?
Yeah,
So,
just something really quick. I dropped off a couple of maps that I put the soil types on the map, and you should have it, but I guess
We do.
oh,
you
okay.
know. I did email. I took a photo of this large map and I sent it to the
To Amelia,
homeowner.
maybe? Oh, okay.
So he would have it. Did you get it? Did you get it?
yes, I did. I got it.
You got it with the soil types on it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, so you should have it somewhere in your office, I guess. because I dropped them off earlier today or the day before.
To the conservation office.
Yeah, they're
Yep.
actually online,
Okay,
Alexis. The soil type map is on there and the soil scientist report.
yes. So we
Okay.
we did receive those and, yep. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, as far as the soil types, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, there's a raypole silt loam that's, you know, below the wetland boundary and before the pond is a raypole silt loam. And then you've got Agawam fine sandy loam, south of the driveway, west of the driveway where those walkways are, and then up at the top of the north side of the property. And then you've got a 229, which is Agawam Urban Land Complex, where, you know, where all the construction is already done.
okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners other than kind of confirming the location and extent of any temporary stockpiling? Sounds,
Okay. Thank you.
all right. We'll see you at the next meeting. And prior to the next meeting, feel free to email either Amelia or myself, and we can recap what just happened.
Okay, we can't resolve this before the next meeting?
We should be able to resolve it before the next meeting is September 12th. So the commission is under state statute, they cannot make a decision the same night that they receive an application. They have to receive an application, and then the Inland Wetland Act requires that they wait at least 14 days to make a decision on any application. So unfortunately, they only have one meeting scheduled in August. Typically, they do meet twice a month. So their next meeting will be September 12th. And I suspect that you'll get a decision at that meeting.
So should we plan to be here, myself and the applicant
I
next
would
time around?
certainly encourage the applicant to be available at the next meeting. And then whether they need your services or not, that would be between you and them, I think.
Okay,
Okay,
Sounds good.
we will move on to the next part of our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Greco and company. We'll talk in a few weeks.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion and or decision on S23-622 27 Bonnie Brook Road. This is the one where we've got a draft resolution. Sorry about that.
Right, all right.
Stony Brook, Bonnie Brook.
Now, 27, 25.
What was,
Um,
there was the revision, correct?
Correct. So at your last meeting, there was some discussion regarding the adequacy of the planting plan, and I had drafted a staff report that included a draft resolution that added some provisions that increased the size of the proposed shrubs, and then also required that at least 3 out of the 5 proposed trees be within the 50-foot upland review area. At the previous meeting, you declined to make to adopt that resolution, and there was some discussion about the applicant returning with some changes. And I know that Mr. Carey is here representing the applicant. I believe that the site plan was updated, but it does reflect the conditions that I had described in that previous resolution.
Okay.
So I believe that tonight is the decision deadline for the agency unless the applicant grants an extension of time. What I did was just sent out the same draft resolution that I had at the previous meeting, but I referred to the latest revised site plan and removed the comments regarding tweaking it since it had been revised.
And what's the date of the revised plan? Because on the website, I'm seeing June 21st is the,
Oh, no.
If I can share my screen, I can bring it up.
That'd be great.
Just for the record, Brian Carey, professional wetland scientist with Land Tech, it offices in Westport, Connecticut. I will share my screen here. So the date of the revision, I believe, was August 1st.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, this is. Sorry about it. What happens is that the Zoom toolbar is in the same location as the so it is the revised updated planting plan is August 1st.
and that's what we're looking at right now.
That's correct.
Okay, could you zoom
So-
in, please, so we can see a little more?
What's can you just specify out what's updated?
Yes, so we updated the plant list and added more plants per the recommendation. We also, there was a recommendation.
Plants or trees?
Both. So there was a request to put the trees as much as possible within the 50-foot upland review area, as you can see. We tried our best to do that, just based on the size of and an increase the size of the trees themselves. So we previously had 4 to 5 foot tree red maples. We've increased them to 5 to 6 foot as requested by the staff's comments. We also increased the quantity and the size of the shrubs as well. So the plan is a little bit more denser. My professional opinion as an arborist, though, is any closer than what we have shown here is going to create a crowding situation in the future. But we did make all the corrections requested by the staff. The plan is updated. The update is of August 1st, which was submitted for your review.
Yeah, and sorry, Brian, but I don't think that the June 21st was the last one. And I think that the quantity has stayed the same between these two plans.
Let me just check. I think we're,
But the sizes and then the location of the trees changed.
Yeah, I mean, within the 50-foot upland review area, there is a fair amount of space. I'm not sure what the constraint is, why it's all within a certain bandwidth of the water course. Seems quite narrow where they're trying to fit it all in.
because this
Because there were
part
10 trees that were taken down.
along the low back area in here, along the back section of the property, there wasn't anything up towards close to the house, from what I understand. I mean, we've provided a pretty robust buffer between what existed even previously to what we're proposing now. Let me just check with the real quick. The previous site plan that was submitted. Sorry, Let me just look through this real quick.
Sorry if I'm out of the loop on this one, but did we ever request information about the location of the trees that were removed? And if so, do we have that information?
So my understanding was that the location of the trees that were removed based on the aerial photography was they were in the rear of the property, kind of where the lot 19 area is here.
Okay.
You know, our goal was to reestablish this buffer along this, it's relatively steep slope up here where you see the wetland flag 3 as much as possible, while also providing them, you know, use of their yard with the pool, with the pool that's been installed, the above ground pool. I mean, at this point, we have really complied with all of the requests of the staff comments that were previously issued. I'm just trying to find the previous site plan. I apologize.
And I think that
Alexis, I think you showed us some satellite pictures that just,
yeah, I can
previously.
show you those. Let me just gonna switch.
So this was our last planting plan.
Oh, hold on, I think
Sorry.
I just went to the aerial photo real quick. Just to answer Miss Knight's question. So this is the brook, and then property line. This is the subject property, and these are the elements in question: the parking area, the deck, and the pool and the shed. So this is what it looks like more or less today, although the trees have a lot more leaves on it. So you can see that there are some trees in this aerial photo. The sun is to, let me just switch. The sun is at the bottom of the screen. So for instance, this tree is casting this shadow here, just like the shed here is casting a shadow here. And then this is what it looked like in 2020. So a few more trees. Like Brian said, most of them were in the backyard. The shed was kind of surrounded by multiple large trees. And then there was one large one here, and then a few more kind of other shrubby trees in the front here. That's from March 2020, and then this is March 2023.
So I guess the question really for that others are asking is I think there's sufficient trees and plantings along the water course over there, right? Like, I don't think you can actually fit anymore. But the back area where the trees were taken out, doesn't seem to be any, and you can go back if the plan, but is that what people are asking about in the back there where the trees were cut down? Why are there no other trees being put in there? Essentially.
Yeah, I guess the question is, the planting plan is mostly not shade trees that are along the front versus what was there.
Well, we are putting in red maple. That is a shade tree. I guess what was removed were diseased tulip trees that were, you know, I wasn't the arborist on the project when that was removed. We were brought in afterwards, prior to the issuance of this notice of violation. We were really Land Tech was really brought into the project to design the addition and the infrastructure associated with that, including the B100 and the stormwater actually didn't require stormwater drainage. The notice of violation wasn't issued until we had submitted the application. So you guys did approve, the commission did approve the addition with the B100, I think 2 months ago. So we've been trying to work to resolve this NOV. It's kind of been a little bit of putting the cart before the horse for us as well as the designer. I don't mind, if there's specific requests. We did, listen to the conservation director's comments and did move the trees in a little bit, into an area that we listened to the comments of the commission and moved them to kind of where they want. We can bring more trees into this area. They would like a separation distance between. the
Mr. Carey, we
fence
can't
and-
see your screen, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
I do it every day.
Yeah. So there is a fence going in here. So the idea is to keep this kind of a, no-go zone, sacrificial area. There is a line of arborvitae's. I'd have to talk to the applicant, but I don't think it will be an issue adding more trees along this border here.
No, I think, actually, if you don't mind me jumping in, I don't think actually that's the area we're all that concerned about, because that's the area that's even farther away from the water course.
Right.
I think really what, and I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth, but based on the aerial photographs we saw, there was a heavy canopy along the entire water course, almost the entire water course, top to bottom on the property. And as a general rule, if you can't really read between the lines, we kind of like things to go back to the way they were usually. So as the closest we can get to that, the happier I think you're going to have your commissioners and the better chance you have of actually getting this through.
So we are providing, like I said, there's going to be a fence here. This will be kind of a no-mow area. I mean, it's not going to be easily accessible. It is all
The
native.
canopy
grass.
is actually more of what we're concerned about.
I'm sorry, Steve.
The canopy is what we're more concerned about than, getting in there with a lawnmower. So I guess maybe I'll push a little bit harder. So if we don't care all that much about the southwest corner of the property because it's a long way from
Right, understood.
course in the wetlands, right? So if there's any way, for example, we can reapportion the red maples or some other species of that size and potential size, I should say, along the water course, more so like what it looked like before from the aerial photograph. That's, I think, what we're aiming for. Someone please jump in if I'm speaking.
So something like two additional red maples in the vicinity of in the front setback where the parking area was?
No, I would just say, let's say from the southeast corner of the house, that's the tightest spot between the water course and the house, right? As I recall, there was a pretty decent sized tree there at one point that was overarching both the water course and a good portion of the lot. So I think maybe if we can just sort of march those red maples north along the property line there and establish something closer to what was there previously, I think that's probably what I'm looking for. Others are welcome to speak up.
Yeah, I think that where it's gotten crowded is where the setback lines are being used as buffer lines. But that's not actually what we would think of probably as buffers. And I think to reiterate what Steve was saying, it would be great to have it go back to how it was, just with the shade along the water course.
Yeah, I have no problem. I know tonight is the last hearing. I don't think it's a huge deal to grant an extension till the next meeting. I can rework the plan a little bit to include, rather than having these sweet pepper bush here, which is a low growing shrub, I can put more shade tree in this area. There is enough planting area in here to put a shade tree, probably, just for diversity mix. We won't do a red maple here. probably look at some other alternative and then to put, alternating trees here at another 6-foot height. I don't think that's a problem. I do like to keep the service berry. I do think that does very well in a riparian area. Doesn't grow too large, but it does provide a lot of pollinator benefits and other benefits within the riparian plantings. So, if we were to take some of this service berry out and replace this area with some other types of large shade trees, whether it be a honey locust or something like that, I don't anticipate that being a problem. If that's something the commission is amenable to, it's really not an issue.
Okay, I would just say even leaving the smaller stuff as is and taking those 5 big ones and dispersing them equally, from basically the east side of the house down to the shed. That, and I'm not a landscape architect, but that to me seems to be like a nice combination of restoring the canopy that was there before, having lower stuff that will also fill in and grow and keep the bank intact. And also, honestly, let's be honest, the whole reason we're sitting here is because they put up a pool and they probably wanted sunshine for the pool. So having fewer trees along the south probably is not a hard sell to anybody, but I could be wrong. Who goes to the pool before 10 o'clock in the morning anyway? Sorry, I'm being trite. But anyway, you're soaking what we're spilling here?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I think somebody has to initiate the process of asking you to grant us an extension to drag this out even longer.
Yep. So the next meeting is August 27th, I believe.
It's September 12th.
Okay, that's
there's
not a
not-
problem. I mean, I wouldn't recommend for him to plant this, during this period anyways. It's not going to go out there. So it's not, he has secured his permits for the addition. So I don't see that being a problem. And I will get a updated planting plan. Alexis, maybe I'll come down there with you with my crayons and we'll just kind of do this quickly so we don't have to waste the commission's time with this anymore.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll see you in September. And does anyone else have anything they want to add? Okay.
Do you need a written, I'll send you a written notice regardless, giving you the 1 month extension. It's not a problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Good night. So moving on to S23-623, 129 Woodward Avenue.
All right, so upon the receipt of this application, you requested some additional information to the drainage plan and to the sedimentation erosion control plan, and the applicant is still working on completing those. I know that they've made some strides and are almost ready to submit the revised information, but not yet.
I'll have it to you again, Brian Carey for the applicant, 129 Woodward. Brian Carey, Land Tech. I'll have that to you first thing tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Groovy. Thanks. Okay, then moving on to S23-624, 20 Edith Lane.
All right, so this application was received at your last meeting. It's a corrective action application that is filed as directed by an order. There's a water course again at the not on the property, but to the adjacent property to the rear. The previously relatively steeply sloped property was filled and regraded, giving it a more usable backyard, and then a steeper slope closer to the wetland and watercourse. When you received the application at the last meeting, there were some concerns about the steepness of the proposed slope. It was a proposed 2-to-1 slope. The applicant, oh, and then you had also suggested that the applicant invest in getting an environmental assessment or a wetland assessment to give you more information about any potential impacts, positive or negative, that the proposal would have on the adjacent wetland and watercourse. And so yesterday the applicant updated both of those. So I just uploaded them moments ago, so I have not looked at them, but I know that the applicant and Mr. Pinedo and his team, Ms. Mock and Mr. Vonzo, are here. And if you want to explain the revisions and the new report, feel free, and let me know if you need me to share my screen or if you'd like to.
So maybe I will start first. Alexandra Mark, so I'm wetland scientist, landscape designer for the record. And let me see whether or not I will be able to share my report. And my apology that you didn't have the opportunity to review the report, but maybe I can just quickly walk you through the report. So let's go just start from the area photo, which is pretty recent, but it does not show the fill of the property. So this is the cul-de-sac here, and this is the outline of the property. Pretty well, it's a sloping area in the front, maintained as a lawn. We have driveway here, and then this area is very steep going down. And we have 2 springs. One is located somewhere here, and the second one is somewhere here. They connect together and basically make the slope wet, being a wetland. And then a little bit lower, which is not shown on this area photograph, it's, I believe, a stormwater basin, which was created for the multifamily development in the neighborhood, and it's all taken over by Phragmites. In my report, I describe the watercourse and wetland area, and it's basically wooded and have some understory growth and also herbaceous ground cover. Here's the plan which we are proposing to stabilize the area, and we understand that the first step should be that we're supposed to be screening the fill, because it includes a lot of the demolition debris. So all the pieces of asphalt and concrete and any other undesired material is going to be separated from the current fill. So we'll make sure that the fill is clean and it's not going to be causing any long-term impact to the water chemistry, because obviously this whole slope is draining towards the wetland area below. So what we're proposing, obviously after the fill is screened, and we're going to do this in phases or areas starting from here, moving to the slope. And the third portion, we are going to be maintaining erosion controls. Here you have the orange line, which is the silt fence, and this fence is going to be here during the activities the entire time. And then to stabilize this slope, we are going to be using blankets, erosional blankets, because of the slope, it's really difficult to stabilize it. So after the fill is, all the debris are removed and the fill is clean, we're going to apply the erosional blankets, and either we're going to be using the blankets which contain seeds in it. So the vegetation will start growing from the seeds, or the area will be seeded and then the blankets are going to be covering the seeds. So the seeds are not going to be washed off and will be able to grow through the blanket. In addition, we're going to have wattles, and wattles I describe them as sausages. Maybe that's not a good thing, but if you think about their shape, they are like sausages. So basically, those core logs are going to be placed along the slope, and we're going to have 3 lines of it. So this way, whenever there's a rain event and the loose fill would like to flow towards the wetland, these are going to be the physical barriers which will not allow the sediment to move down. And also, it's going to be, in addition, slowing down the flow and keeping the sediment. I do describe in details the vegetated cover found at the site. Wetland habitat, it's mostly supporting the edge species. This is a section of a fragmented forest, and if you just look at through the neighborhood and take a larger picture, there are belts of woodlands which are kind of connected. So most likely they are creating the corridors for wildlife to migrate. However, they are having very sharp edges, means that there is no vegetation which provides a transitional zone between tall trees and through the shrubland to the lawn areas. It's just basically the edge of the forest, and then you have lawns around them. So this is actually not a good situation because it doesn't prevent from the sun penetration and desiccation and harder edges of the woodland, which makes actually the usable space for wildlife habitat even narrower. And then I'm going to the wetland functions and values, and is discharging the groundwater to those 2 springs. I'm not sure about one of them. It may not be a natural spring. It may be some sort of pipe. But it was covered by fill. The wetland, so it was difficult to determine. The wetland was delineated by Allotil last year. The flood flow alteration, it's not much there because it's a steep slope, so the water flows very quickly, it doesn't stay, it doesn't provide any flood storage capacity. There's no fish or fish habitat because the springs are pretty much intermittent, but the pond, which is designed for the stormwater, may have fish. But that's off-site. The sediment is being screened through the filter of the vegetated cover. Some of the nutrients which are attached to the sediment, so the sediment-borne pollutions or nutrients are being transformed for a moment when they just end up with some sorts of micro depressions, but then they have a tendency to be washed down to the detention pond when we have larger storm events. Production and export, there's a dense vegetated cover, so there's a lot of leaves and some other organic material what then goes to the forest floor and being decomposed. And because of the slope situation and flowing water, this material is being carried down to the pond and hopefully provide some food source for aquatic wildlife. Sediment stabilization, the deep root system of the vegetation provides the stabilization measures. Wildlife habitat, we did discuss this, and there is no, this area is not being marked at the natural diversity database maps. Site disturbance, there was fill installed, and the estimate is 800 cubic yards. So there are potential short and long impact, and the short impact are related to the loose sediment which was deposited or sitting along the slope. And this obviously exposed this area to erosion because the edge of the wetland is being wooded, but it's not being protected by any of the buffer at the moment. So there's no vegetative filter. Also, there is no shade producing vegetation and moisture keeping, so it's kind of exposed, and this needs to be addressed. Long term, we're hoping that the sieving of the sediment and separating the demolition debris is going to ensure that the fill is clean. And there's not going to be any changes in water chemistry. Now the slope, probably Wayne is going to be talk about a little bit more. I've heard that the commission requested that is going to be, the area is going to be regraded to create a little bit steep of a slope, which will then slow down the stormwater movement down and give less of an opportunity to be eroded. Mitigation measures, so what is being recommended is the proper soil erosion controls and sedimentation measures should be applied. Right now, the area is being exposed, but it was supposed to also separating the sediment from the construction debris. So this will have to take time and be readjusted. Then the next one is dealing with the edge exposure, so some sort of buffer is supposed to be restored in the future to protect the soil and protect the woodland edge and also the wetland and watercourse in it. It is recommended that at least a 10-foot buffer along the edge of the forest will be created. And the most important, after the fill is the slope is regraded and the demolition debris is going to be removed, that the area is going to be covered with at least 4 inches of topsoil. Topsoil is very important because it contains organic material, which not only absorbs pollutants, but also retains moisture and provides good media for the vegetation, which is supposed to be established along the slope. And I think this would summarize my report. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Any commissioners have questions? Seems like a very thorough and well assembled plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We can, if we want to tonight, make a decision on it, but we don't have a draft resolution. Do we need one, Alexis?
You actually need to schedule a public hearing, so it's a
Oh, public
significant
hearing.
regulated activity, so it will require a public hearing because of the amount of material being moved in your upland review area. It automatically is a significant.
Got it.
But
Yeah.
that said, if you know, feel free to have discussion now in advance of scheduling the public hearing. But if you wanted to schedule the public hearing for your next meeting on the 12th, you could certainly do that now. And if you do have any comments, I think the applicant would appreciate hearing any comments sooner than later.
I think it would be helpful to take what was in the report, because that's really a report, and put it into a plan, which then I think Alexis could then write a draft resolution or something that could then go into the hearing. But I think they're in the report, but I don't know that that's necessarily incorporated into what the plan is.
The only
Would
other
you
thought
like
I had,
us to, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Would you like us to go to like phases? So the phase 1 is going to be separating the construction debris. Phase 2 is going to be regrading the area to create the slope you would like to see and the steepness. And then let's say phase 3 is going to be stabilization with the blankets and seeding the area and planting the buffer. And then I guess the last phase will be just final inspection to check whether or not the area is stable and covered.
There was
Yeah, I
also a
think-
question of, sorry.
Sorry, go.
No, I was just gonna say you had mentioned the grading being, and there was a mention of that, but I don't, it wasn't in any plan tonight, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so there
actually,
is another,
There is a plan,
Olaf,
uh,
when it's coming to the rescue.
sort of. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
Wayne
but that should-
Danzo, Fairfield County Engineering. There is a plan. I'm gonna try to share my screen.
let me know if you want me to.
There we are. Can you see that?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the plan showing the new grading. The grading is at 3-to-1 now, or
Okay.
less steep in some areas. Again, as before, there's three layers of grading shown on here. The light ones are the original grading. The reddish contours are what was there prior to this, what's there now, actually, and the dark black lines are the proposed grading, the 3-to-1 or less steep slope. And so this is basically the plan. It does show the details for the wattles, which Alexandra covered. They do kind of look like sausages. They're round cylindrical material that gets put across here in 3 layers. We do have a construction sequence on the plan, which sort of summarizes the process of what's going to be done. And that's pretty much it. We do show the swale is still here that directs the water towards the wetland, which serves the same purpose as what the original rating had done. And that's the plan.
My only thought on the drawings was, is there any reason to have a double silt fence at the bottom of the slope? Or you think one is good enough?
Actually, I thought we were doing a double silt fence at the bottom. It could certainly be a double silt fence, yeah.
Thanks. Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you for the information. We'll schedule the public hearing for September. By we, I mean Alexis will.
Could you maybe make a motion to that effect?
Could I move to schedule the public hearing for our next meeting, which is September, oh, come on, calendar, 12th, right? Is that what we said? Yeah, 12th.
Well,
Can I have a second? Ed
Second.
got it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Sounds good. That
all right, so
passes.
that'll be September 12th at 7 p.m. Applicant, feel free to stop by. Email me if you want to make sure that I'm here at a time when you stop by, and we'll go over the required notice requirements for the hearing.
Okay, yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to, wait, we don't have any public hearings tonight, do we? No, good. S21 568 4.5 Mile Road, bond release or reduction, release of bond.
Okay, so this was the first violation for this property. It was issued in 2001. The permit is a corrective action permit following that initial violation. It has been 2 growing seasons since the property owner installed a row of I believe it's spice bush. We had gone out to do an inspection, our inspectors last 2 weeks ago, and found another bit of a violation. So a new notice of violation was issued. Just want to warn you, for doing some drainage work and for mowing the part of the buffer area that was established by their second violation. However, they I believe are back on track, and the original plans for the first violation, corrective action, are still alive and would be eligible for release. I can show you photos if you like, but
No, so that's what we're talking about. So you recommend the release of the 966?
okay.
Okay. So moved. Can I have a second? I think Amy got that one. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Unanimous. What is the next one? CCCCCCC.
Oh, did I not update it? Sorry, it's updated on the website. I must have sent you a, I was working from multiple places, and I had versions. My apologies. So it's S22 593 1 Old Kings Highway, Glazer. Reduction of the bond for associated with construction of a new house adjacent to wetlands in the Silver Mine River. So this is a permit that you granted last year for construction of a new house. There was an existing house there that was demolished and a new house constructed. This is only a portion of the bond. The bond held for all the plantings, that there are 45 shrubs for an enhanced buffer along the river. That bond will remain. This bond was held for sedimentation erosion controls, and the house is constructed, sod has been laid down. It is stable, and so staff would recommend release.
So moved. Can I have a second? Catherine, got a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Moving on to approval of minutes. Did anyone do us all a favor and review the minutes from the July 25th meeting, which I did not attend? Anybody? Bueller?
I think,
Okay, I'm good.
I think Ed, Heather, and Catherine were in attendance. It can be tabled to the next meeting if you want.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Yeah.
All right. And we can still vote on it even if we weren't
Yes.
there. Okay,
You're
so-
just you and Amy would just be abstaining. So you still
Oh,
count. You're
got
fine.
it. All right, so all in favor? We
Aye.
have 3 abstaining, 2, Amy and me, right?
Correct.
And then nobody's left to object, so I guess they're approved.
Good. Yeah.
Great. Okay, all right, cool. Conservation initiatives. So what did you guys do last time? Sorry, I wasn't there. Here, wherever. Anybody?
Heather gave an excellent synopsis of your comments.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
I did your homework. I told them, Steve.
Did you? Since I volunteered you to.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I
Catherine had
actually,
some updates. Ed had some comments, maybe.
okay. Did anybody get anything in writing? No.
Just one thing, we also mentioned that I'd spoken with Lisa Shanahan, who had invited us to join them when they meet again for the sustainability subcommittee to discuss also coming together on some input for greener or more sustainable comments on the zoning regulations.
When
Right.
is that?
think it's
I don't
September
know.
13th, but I will confirm.
It's
What
13th?
I think it's September 13th.
September 13th. Okay, I'm
But I can work-
talking,
I can work that out with the, with that, subcommittee of the common council. No problem.
all right,
If you are interested. And so, my 2 cents, what I would recommend is that you as the Conservation Commission work on trying to make send a memo to the planning and zoning commission on your comments, particular to the zoning rewrite. And then additionally, you might end up doing something cooperatively with the ad hoc committee, and that can go to the planning and zoning commission. I suspect that a lot of the things that come up with your discussion with the ad hoc committee are beyond the realm potentially of zoning. And I know that a lot of the things that we talked about at the last meeting, mostly having to do with building code, how to make some changes there, maybe something that's done by ordinance as opposed to within the zoning code. So
And so is
Just
the ad
want
hoc committee, it's an ad hoc committee of the common council.
it is right. So there's an ad hoc sustainability committee of the common council, and they are charged with kind of focusing the city as a whole on climate change planning.
Got it. And so that is happening September 16th or 13th, question mark. 13th would be a Wednesday.
They usually meet on Wednesdays, but I will.
Alexis, to confirm?
Let's see. Yes, I will definitely be confirming, but I believe they meet the first Wednesday of the month.
And
So,
how,
like,
how does that happen? Virtually?
It does. They meet, they have a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
So technically it would be a joint meeting of the committee and the commission.
Next Zoom meeting is, okay. So that is, and so you said you'd recommend that the Conservation Commission. So wait, we're gonna have two memos, whatever deliverables, one addressed to Sustainability Committee and one addressed to P and Z. They should be separate things.
Now, I was just encouraging you to stay hyper focused on the zoning commission.
Right.
And the planning and zoning commission and the proposed zoning regulation rewrite, which is a little bit more narrow in focus than all of the very good environmental initiatives that the group kind of dreams about. And then so that I would just encourage you as the Conservation Commission to send Planning and Zoning Commission a memo about
And
the
is there-
zoning rewrite. And then additionally, absolutely encourage a get together with the ad hoc committee of the council to talk about both the things within the zoning regulations and then other ideas for the ad hoc committee to pursue that are kind of on a bigger realm than just zoning.
Okay, discuss zoning, rewrite, and other sustainability concerns. Can you give us a timeline on the zoning rewrite? Like, when are we starting to run out of runway here?
Well, it's a moving target. I think you still have a couple months. If you're reading the news, a lot of the attention so far has been on the zoning map and where different areas have district or zone changes. And so I think that once that is resolved, then the commission's going to have to come back to the the language and content of the draft regulations. But it's a huge document, so it will take a little bit of time, but they are starting to kind of the staff has aggregated all the comments and the Planning and Zoning Commission is going through all of those. So
So we still have time to add our Common staff.
Steve,
Okay,
I think the takeaway, or I think what I believe Alexis is saying is that like the stuff having to do with grading or whatever that changes I believe we had, or tree plantings or things having to do like that can probably go in the memo to P and Z, and then the stuff having to do with the sustainability, anything having to do potentially with building codes, and I think you know that, right? Like it's gonna have to be in a, so.
okay, all right. Well,
And there are portions of that kind of thing in the zoning regulation, but it's just more limited than across the board. So there's stuff
You're
like in the some of the village districts, there's incentives for density incentives if you have these sustainability things. So there's room for that. It's just not as broad brush.
Yeah,
all right, so yeah, I actually took the spreadsheet you put together, Heather, and I put a little different twist on it. And these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jurisdictions in the country that recognize NGBS and light green programs, not in the building code, not with a dollar amount associated with it.
Yeah.
And there was one other qualification. So these are really just density bonuses, expedited building permits, basically things that wouldn't cost the city anymore.
Yeah.
Density, height, parking bonuses, expedited inspections and reviews and reduced fees, density bonus. So like before I put this to bed, and I know I didn't get my 2 cents in last time, so I'm getting them in now. So no one has any appetite for even considering adding NGBS to our comments for the zoning, you're right, strictly on in a carrot, not stick basis, offering any of these bonuses to developers.
but can I ask what about the Steve, why just NGBS?
Because NGBS is written, it was written to be adopted into codes and regulations more cleanly than other programs like LEED or EGC or Energy Star or whatever.
Yeah, okay,
So it's kind of the way the standard was designed and set up and structured, whatever.
okay, because a lot of the ones I read about were equivalent, right?
Or what?
Were NGBS or equivalent, including LEED, Energy Star, EGS, like EGC.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the
and
only reason I ask.
The list you got is from NGBS or from Innovation Labs,
Yeah.
right? So like,
Yeah.
I just decided because there's only so much I can chew at once to focus on NGBS because I know it is the most commonly adopted and it was designed to be adopted in this way
Yeah,
versus other programs. So
no, all I was trying to say is could we in our recommendation say like how they use it, which is NGBS or equivalent, so that if somebody is, no, you don't think so?
I just think the more times, and I'm not a lawyer, but the more times you write in
Sure.
sort of open-ended things.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this
got
sort of
it.
Stuff, all it does is create headaches for people down the road, which is kind of why zoning wanted to redo this rewrite because there was a whole bunch of like open-ended language that caused confusion, etc.
Okay. And then there
So-
was, oops, sorry.
No,
There was two other questions I actually had for you in writing this, since I was not the expert in it, but one, there was, and Alexis, I apologize. I realized I was writing you an email back saying I forgot about your email. I'm so sorry, but the ordinance, wait, can you put that screen back for a
Oh,
second? I
sorry.
needed that for my thinking.
Got it. My bad.
It's all right.
There you go.
There was, I had asked the question what an ordinance would take versus like, that's not incentive and it's not building code. I don't know what the difference is there. Never, that's my first question, but the second question is also like, as this pertains to the NGBS, I assume it's a residential and commercial. Is it 5 stories plus is commercial?
It's primarily residential. It can be mixed use.
got it. Okay. Because I would like to see both. I mean, I think both would make sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
But so your first question is, what's the difference between? What was your first
Well,
question?
I had asked Alexis this question, and I apologize if this isn't the right forum for it, but basically trying to understand what the difference between a construction code, a building code, and all the tax incentives, like that stuff, I understand where versus an ordinance requirement.
Gotcha. Let's see how to describe it. So there are some regulations that get their authority from enabling legislation, like zoning regulation. Inland wetland regulation is a good example. So you the municipality, have these inland wetland regulations, and you're bound by what the state has come up with in its state statutes that enable the municipality to do certain things under the Inland Wetland Act, and then you kind of trickle up from that to the federal Clean Water Act. And so zoning is the same way, where you have enabling legislation that allows the different boards and commissions of a municipality to administer regulations. And then, and if I'm like getting this wrong, feel for any of you just chime right in.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize.
That's right. Just trying to think how, and then, so an ordinance is would be adopted by the municipal legislative body. So in Norwalk, that would be the Common Council.
Okay.
And the Common Council can add additional ordinances or kind of local laws, as long as they are not kind of
In conflict with,
in conflict, yeah,
or
with
overstep
the
their,
state. Right. Because with state statute, there's these requirements to do certain work, or to regulate certain, to have a inland wetland agency. But within regulations, there's also certain exemptions that allow, that basically say that municipality can't regulate this or that. And so the ordinance can fill in where there are places that don't say, you can't regulate this. Does that make sense?
It does. I was just wondering if that was a possible opportunity for some of the stuff we were talking about. That's why.
yeah,
Yes,
definitely. I
and
think
so
that's
that
where
would-
we started.
That
Right.
would be the,
Common Council.
right, so that might not be
Council.
allowed through the zoning code.
Right.
Some of it, but it could be an ordinance. And so there's an ordinance committee of the Common Council, just like there is a ad hoc committee for sustainability and resilience of the Common Council. But it all goes back to that full council and the decisions that they make.
Understood. Thank you. That was helpful, because that's what I was thinking it could potentially fall under. So now I understand.
Okay, so with that, I'm just going to put my little idea about NGBS to bed. It doesn't sound like it's gonna get a lot of traction at the zoning rewrite regulation level, but it may be something we want to actively pursue at the Common Council ordinance level. Yeah, okay. So the other thing I put up was, this is just my first stab at, and this is what I said earlier today, just basically literally copy and pasting the language out of the sections that I reviewed and proposing alternate language, just to make it as easy as possible for zoning to digest, understand, enact ideally. Yeah, it's kind of like when people come to us, we want them to make it as easy as possible for us to approve, or make some decision on what they're doing. So I'm just trying to put ourselves in the opposite seat.
Oh, this
Um,
was great.
But we discussed what was in my email from whatever, a few weeks ago with the color coding. Is that true? And Cheryl's not here. Matt's not here. Catherine is here though.
Yeah, I've got some stuff on EV charging to discuss and get input on.
Hit it.
So I've looked up and it was really helpful because the APA had done a really helpful article on or is it on EV charging and zoning practices. The American Planning Association had done a great article on thinking about the EV surge. And in looking at the planning and zoning requirements, it has some for developments. I don't know what the city of Norwalk's EV surge or EV planning is, if there is any plan for EV charging. But you know, irregardless of what the state's recommending or aspirations are for EV vehicles and EV fleets in the state of Connecticut for its climate change aspirations, you know, the car manufacturers are moving quickly. One, because there's more global pressure for platforms to deliver EV vehicles in Europe and in other car markets, as well as the US. And I think consumers are also, the demand for EV vehicles has gone up. So there's three, in the current set of regulations, there's just a requirement if there's over, what was it, 20 parking spaces, 10% should be grade level 2 EV charging for developments. There was also, which I was confused about in the planning and zoning, saying that EV charging could happen, but it needs to be hidden.
What does that mean? They don't want to see
So
it?
you could have EV charging is not permitted, or EV charging equipment's not permitted in the front of a house, but you could do it. It is permitted if it's hidden, or it's permitted in the side or the rear of a property. And that's standard zoning across all buildings. And the question is, you know, well, how's that going to work when most homes' driveways are in the front of the house? You're trying to charge a car. I mean, you can't drive it around the back of your house.
Sounds like they're pertaining to drive like stations, but that's not what's written.
No, that's not what's written.
Yeah, I don't know if that is for a single family house or more for when there's proposed development, that it not be in the
Well,
in
they
the
call
front
it's
setback.
fallen under for all the different zones. They call
Okay.
it's under the non-building component. So they've lumped EV charging infrastructure with heating and air conditioning equipment, utility service, and mechanical equipment. And EV charging infrastructure isn't really the same kind of look and feel as a air conditioning or heat pump unit.
Gotcha.
You know, generally for level 2, what people are doing at their homes, it's a box that's sitting there with a cable that you then just plug into your cart. So, you know, right there would be a comment, and it says front yard NP not permitted, side yard permitted if screened from the front, and rear yard permitted.
Okay.
Where are you taking your car? I don't know practically how that works. The second one is just, you know, there isn't really much in terms of thinking about it from the equity point of view for underserved communities where people are going to charge, because a lot of them are in multifamily, and the state law for Connecticut says, you know, they can make an application, but there's a lot of requirements in terms of bearing the cost and, you know, paying for installing, the extra insurance that they might have to get for it. So they're looking at saying, you know, is there something in the building code and zoning code that, you know, you classify it down between having buildings that are EV capable. So they have the EV ready, meaning that you don't have the final charging, but the pipes are laid from the board to hook up and connect. And then the last one is EV installed. So I think that there's something in some of the residential, because most charging happens at a residential level currently. In developments for multifamily, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 family situations of saying maybe we should look at being EV ready. And for developments or new developments of condo units over a certain size, they should be EV installed. You know, for some of the developments that have like 30 units or, you know, or more.
So I'm sorry. So we
Also,
would,
having just 2 and having 10% isn't really going to meet the demand. You need to be looking at the fleet of saying, you know, well, what are you going to do when it's 50% of the cars or 80% of the cars need residential EV charging?
so I have experience with this because of the multifamily projects that I work on. And there is, I mean, they're not cheap to put in. I'll say that much. And it's not necessarily, you know, the spots there, that's not a problem. It is, and running the conduit out to the spot that's cost, but it's usually not the problem. The problem is building in enough capacity at the panels, because these are level 2 and that's quite a bit of amperage. And so I hear you. I'm just saying the feedback I've gotten from my developers when we were saying like, oh, you can get an extra lead point if you put in 10% of the EV chargers or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we're doing bare minimum because it's expensive. But
Yeah, at some point
Is
it's gotta be, I
25%
mean,
better?
at some, you know, when we put in refrigerators, you know, we added up a lot of kilowatts over the years in terms of the appliances that we put in, you know, washer and dryer, you
Yeah.
know.
okay.
So I think this is just kind of a new reality that needs to start being,
So
What if the suggestion was for a higher percentage of ready spots
that's
and,
exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah. So if and when something comes down the pipe, that becomes more affordable or whatever, subsidized, I don't know. They're ready for it. They don't have to redo it.
You want it to be like 50%
Yeah,
EV ready or something like that?
that's what I would think.
yeah. Because it's gonna be, at some point, it's gonna be really challenging. And it also helps like Eversource, you know, planning out their grid and needs too, because they're already thinking about it.
Okay, cool. I'm just typing stuff and trying to keep the
I think
conversation going.
saying,
If
you know,
think
EV
Tiffany's
ready,
wrong-
and they need to separate out the electric vehicle charging that people can charge from their front yard. I mean,
Okay,
they
so
should
that's
be able
that's
to charge from their
here.
driveway.
So propose remove limitations on where chargers may be installed. How's that?
Yeah,
Okay. And then do we want to start anything from scratch? So you were talking about it was EV ready. I always forget what the difference is between the two like ready ones. There's
EV capable means
EV
you're putting
capable.
into the board, but you're not laying, you know, the pipe to the, you know, you're not putting any of the conduits.
Okay, so EV capable means you've got space at the electrical panels. EV ready means you've got that and you've got conduit run out to the spots, parking spots.
Yeah, so it's EV means that you have like the cables in, but it's not live and attached to a charging
Got it.
station.
Got it. Okay. So what do you guys think? Do you want to push harder or did we get
The raceway conduit to the junction
that
is EV
is
ready. EV capable
EV
means
ready.
that you have the electrical panel capacity.
Well, and let me ask you this. What if the service to a house, let's talk about houses for a minute. What if the service to a house is not big enough to handle Or what if there's a 100-amp panel in the house, which is very common around here, and there's no room for a charger? You know,
You can add in, I mean, we added in box to our house.
okay. And so when would this apply? Is this applying to new houses, new construction, right? It's not applying to any like renovations or
Well,
upgrades.
I don't think I think you're talking about two separate things here. I think at least
Right.
this is what I'm understanding. The residential, the point about residential was to take any language pertaining to not being seen, like the charging
Yeah.
station or whatever, out of any residential code, so explicitly not said for residential. And
Yeah.
then the second point would be that the 50% would be for if more than 20 spaces, which would
Okay.
not, yeah.
So this is for like multifamily or?
Yeah.
Does it apply to
Yeah,
commercial?
I mean,
Like a-
basically, I mean, if you think about it from a renter's perspective, in terms of like thinking about equity for a moment. If there's not a requirement for multifamily or people doing applications for multifamily or renovations to multifamily to actually add in that the unit is EV capable, the cost to any particular individual who would be renting to then try to meet the requirements for a rental property to make an upgrade that basic infrastructure would be prohibitive.
Well, they're not doing it anyway because they're not going to get permission to do it. Like,
Yeah.
That's really what's happening. It's not about cost. It's the owner's going to say no.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's say, how about, so do we want to require 50% EV ready or EV capable?
I mean, I think the aspiration would be to ask for EV ready.
All right. Aim for the stars, land on the moon. Fine.
Exactly.
Okay. So I guess the next step here would be to take what we just talked about and plunk it into this document.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to do? Is that something you want to delegate to someone else?
I can do it. Should I go into just the email and plunk it in there?
I sent a Word doc. I suppose we
Okay.
can turn it into a Google doc. I don't know. I'm kind of old school, but
If
whatever.
you put it into a Google Doc, then we can edit it and it should save somewhere, or then I just share it back, or.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I'll do that.
All right, then I'll add in stuff.
Okay. Steve, transfer Word doc to Google Docs. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And then I also had the coastal resiliency and
Yay.
flood zone. The Norfolk, Virginia, has tried to be a lighthouse in updating doing a zone overlay for climate resiliency or coastal flooding.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot in there, and I know that there's also the resiliency project, and I think that they're also looking at making some zoning recommendations or overlay zones. But
Alexis, do you know anything about that?
About the Circa's resiliency.
Yeah.
overlay? Yes. So, the Circa selected the South Norwalk area as one of its focus areas for resilient Connecticut. And they are going to provide some additional guidance to Norwalk for what a zoning overlay might look like as far as its language. They're just going to focus on the South Norwalk area to support some of the concepts that have been discussed by that program. So they're also pursuing looking into more deeply looking into some of the implementation concepts that were talked about, in particular road elevation and the installation of green infrastructure. But then kind of as an aside, Circa is going to have a group of other people work on coming up with language. So we don't know what's going to be in that yet or what it will look like. But the idea is that we have these regulatory schemes already, the Coastal Area Management Act, which is a regulation that comes from the Coastal Area Management Act of the state. And then we have our flood zone regulations, and those have their own limits for what we can do with those. And so what this additional overlay zone would do would provide additional zoning restrictions or requirements that are have an eye towards climate change.
So then the question is, do we just rely on them? Do we piggyback on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a letter of support saying, to add a note of support for the whatever Circa's outcome. I don't think we need to reinvent that wheel.
Good.
You don't need to reinvent that wheel, but I think it's important to let the Planning and Zoning Commission know that you know that Circa is working on this, and you would hope that they would seriously consider whatever comes out of that report.
What is the acronym? What is it?
Circa, CIRCA.
I know there was also discussion in the last meeting about expanding it to all coastal areas. I think somebody had put that out there.
Yes, and they were gonna, they'll see. Yes.
Because one of the things that struck me was it made sense, and it's not really in the zoning and it doesn't get addressed through CAM. It's just the setback from the changing average high tide mean. So, one of the issues that insurers are having and farmers exited Florida over was just the sustainability and viability of property and development. So it's not adequately being addressed. So, if you have sea level rise and you also have tide, the average, mean tide moving in, obviously that needs to be accounted for when planning and zoning are looking at approving development.
So is the mechanism a timeline for revisiting where the line is drawn?
Well, currently there's no setback from average high tide.
And is that something that we think Circa is gonna comment on or not?
I don't know, but I do think that should just be flagged in there because it's an issue. And there's also things that Norfolk looked at saying, they're not really encouraging where there isn't walls to be putting up walls, because that, you really need to be putting in marshlands, and you need to be putting in allowing for erosion to happen, because that is going to build the erosion that happens through flooding is beneficial because it raises up, it's a natural raising of sedimentation levels, which further protects against wave action that happens.
And I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. So to specifically encourage removal of existing seawalls, or to specifically encourage?
Yeah, in the residential areas to encourage people not putting in, walls.
Okay, yeah, I mean, most of Norwalk has either revetments or seawalls. I think we did a mapping exercise, and more than 85% of the current coastline is revetment or seawall. So there is a lot of existing, but that doesn't mean that. I was just trying to figure out.
There's a lot in the urban kind of high density area, but not so much in the residential, but you'll find that people will start putting them in, thinking that's
Okay.
What is it? What are we promoting? What do the wetlands do? What is that? It's natural flood control. What's another way of saying that?
Well, they
Um,
provide a lot of.
I'll put
wave
something in that,
attenuation.
I've got some good,
Right, so the installation of flood and erosion control walls, control structures, is regulated by the state of Connecticut. So the tidal wetlands and anything below the coastal jurisdiction line is state. And then the Coastal Area Management Act, the idea of it was to regulate areas upland of coastal areas. So most walls get state, well, all flood and erosion control walls should get a state permit, and not all of them are necessarily regulated by zoning, but you could yeah, I'm just rambling. I'm just trying to think about how it would be, how what language you might suggest within the regulations. Just trying to think it through.
Can it be additive to whatever the state?
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah, because I think what they're looking at is to say that, you know, the marshes provide better wave absorption of the wave energy from like major weather events and storm flooding than a wall.
mhm.
But see, the thing is, adding to what the state has defined kind of requires us to understand what the state has defined.
Yeah, right.
Which is the big.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
this is a whole, I mean, it's a back and forth. I mean, it's like a thesis type level, like rabbit hole of the screens that I've gone down, like looking at what Maine is doing and Jamestown and yeah. So,
I think the point is that we don't have purview over that, but we can potentially add to whatever the state is regulating.
And you
Yeah,
can
or-
certainly
That's
promote
nicely.
removal of walls. Absolutely.
yeah,
That's a tough sell, but it's has a lot of positive benefits.
Okay,
yeah, it's,
does that overlap a little bit? Or did we cover coastal resiliency and flood zone there all kind of all in one?
I think it's kind of all in one. I mean, there's the rivers and, you know, that, but I think that that's more robust than the coastal resiliency. That's something that's not, that's newer.
We can leave it how it was. Okay.
You can try it, Steve. I wasn't saying the not to take it off. I was.
What of this? Oh, whatever, dudes. It's all good.
I mean,
I-
that's the one thing, like, because with geothermal, I mean, we looked at putting geothermal in and it would have been like, if it was a new build, it would have been a lot more cheaper to put in and a lot more effective. But, you know, trying to retrofit it once you already have a house put on the property is really expensive and really challenging. I mean, just going back to your National Green Building Standard, like, if
Yeah.
there's a way to encourage it, that would be awesome.
It would be just for newer,
New
bigger
builds, yeah.
project. Yeah. I mean, you can do it for existing, but
Or substantial rehab, yeah.
substantial.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to say to these language. Oh wait, actually, you know what? Hold on a second. You guys can help me. All right, here. Help me out on mine if you don't mind, then let's wrap this up, unless someone else has more that they want to talk about. So the current language for soil erosion and sediment control plan says basically if you've got disturbed area cumulatively more than 1/2 acre. I thought that was like,
So That comes from state statute.
Okay, so can't do
So
anything
that's
there?
in the zoning statute, so those two exemptions, are that exemption is part of the state statute,
So wait, this,
both of those.
both of these?
So,
Fine.
um,
Well, that was the only question I had, so that.
okay.
Let's
And
keep
then,
it.
about the grading. So currently you have a fill and excavation permit ordinance, which is chapter 97 of the code that requires that, you, get a fill and excavation permit if you don't have an open building permit and you're moving more than 50 cubic materials of, 50 cubic yards of material, or if you're going to change your grading. And so I think that, it's going to change from 100 down to 50 to be consistent with our existing ordinance.
Check. And what about this one?
And then, so you can certainly make that suggestion. And I'd say something less would probably fly. It comes down to the amount of regulatory personnel and being able to, so there's a fine line between like wanting to do everything and then being able to do everything.
Yeah,
So that's part of where that number came from. It's unfortunately, I think there are a lot of talks about, really going down about the private trees and the nitty-gritty of private land use. But currently there's not the staff to enforce that. But definitely up for suggestions.
how
But
about I
just
put it
just
at
to warn
1,000?
you, like
I was
that's
just
the
gonna say,
kind of
make it
calculus.
1,000, Steve. That seems more,
You got it. All right. And they can always say no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Oh yeah,
That-
I mean, to be honest, like they're not even in the CAM, like, the state doesn't regulate clear cutting in the buffer zone of coastal tidal wetlands, but
Right.
But we
This is-
could,
This is Amy here. There are a lot of like regulations for buffer zones towards wetlands, vegetation and whatnot. We don't necessarily regulate clear cutting per se, but if you're going to go in for say stormwater permits or other permits that get looked at by the department, we frown upon and prefer to have buffer zones of any work or clear cutting or any disturbance whatsoever within 50 feet of wetlands, and sometimes more depending on what the slopes and whatnot are. But you're right that there's no inherent clear cutting regulations against it. But if you do go before the state for any types of permit or what, they're going to look at that and prefer that you have at least the 50-foot buffer for any disturbance whatsoever, or even going through it or working through it. So that's kind of an interesting. It's interesting listening to you guys go over these regulations. I'm kind of sitting here, I'm like, I'm not gonna like interfere with like what I do during the day versus what we're gonna do here at night. And by all means, we want to protect Norwalk the best we can. So this is just my 2 cents. It's quite riveting to listen in.
riveting?
Yeah.
Is that the word you use?
Oh, Amy.
yeah, I
didn't wanna
haven't
say
seen really
funny.
much being protected in terms of the coastal tidal wetlands. It just,
Well, it all depends if you're going before for a permit or not.
Right, right.
That's
And,
kind of like the nuance and the fine line there.
Right. And a lot of it comes back to the local commission that
Right.
is making those decisions. And so just as an example, I'll use inland wetlands because that's what you know and I know.
Yeah.
I remember that years ago, we had a series of violations and someone had, and Ed's heard this story a gazillion times. Someone had said, I wish that Norwalk had the inland wetland regulations that Wilton does, because they're really strong. And I turned to them and I said, and this was one of a commissioner at the time. I said, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have at the time, you had the exact same regulations as Wilton. The difference is that asserting your authority to kind of toe the line. No, I want full replacement of the trees. No, I want to have the buffer that was there. No, I think that this is too much. The language is there. You have the authority to regulate, 50 feet from wetlands. It's the willingness of the community to really to say, no, this is important to us. And so a lot of, I think, what needs to change in Norwalk as far as the coastal regulation is that it has been kind of lax, in that kind of these general statements of, yes, this is consistent with the Coastal Area Management Act, and not really understanding the full authority that the act does give to the municipality. And then having a planning and zoning commission that is willing to kind of push back on coastal development, which is very, financially beneficial to the city. So just knowing that there is like the regulation part, but then there's also
Enforcement.
education and kind of getting people to make better decisions, which is a long process.
Yeah, because it's not helpful in the long run for the state, because at some point the insurance companies, if we have a major hurricane event, you've got high value properties now, higher density, that are, you're going to have huge damage, and the insurance companies are going to be like, well, we want a red line. We don't want to do this, or we'll exit. I mean, that happened in California. It's happening in Florida. Maybe that will get people to the states to pay attention. I mean, that's the system, I guess.
On that note,
I mean,
I
without
just noticed-
being argumentative, it has nothing to do with whether the state's paying attention or not. These aren't my divisions that are my purview, but I, worked in the commissioner's office overseeing high profile permitting for 3 years. And it all depends if you get people's attention, because there's a resource demand. And as Alexis was saying, unless there's something for someone to review or look at, it doesn't come before the state. We can make the regulations all we want, but then, as she's saying, it's delegated out to, commissions such as ourselves as well. So if it doesn't meet a certain threshold, if you're just looking at soil excavation piles and, and tonnage and square feet for that, and if it doesn't meet certain thresholds, it's delegated to the local commissions. So it's understanding where the line gets drawn, and then being able to have the resources to get the eyes on it, and then also the community to come forward and participate in the process. It's like almost a 3-prong effect of how do we actually, make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be stewards of the environment. And then there's the prong of people that just don't care. So it's a really difficult and complex problem, and I'm happy that we're talking about it, because it needs to happen more, because the state can only do so much, and we can only have so many regulations that people either don't read or say they don't agree with, even though it is exactly what they wanted. So it's really important that you guys are looking at these regulations and thinking about it, because it makes, people that I work with every day, it makes our loads lighter, because we just can't do everything either. So I love the criticalness that's happening here, because it's really important to, just protecting our environment and being the stewards that we all signed up for this commission to be. So yes, Steve, I do say this is a riveting conversation to me. I stand by what I said, and you guys can inform your own opinions about that. But I find it just, it's why I do what I do 9 to 5. You know what I mean? Yeah, keep it up, everyone. I really enjoy it.
Okay. Well, what are our next steps? Should I hound Matt and Cheryl to add their suggested proposed language to the document like I did? Catherine Ellie volunteered to do hers. Anybody else is obviously welcome to volunteer to help as well. And then it's a whole month until we meet again. I guess we can try to keep the ball rolling while we're away, but I know I operate on a deadline. Everyone else probably does too, where I feel most motivated by a deadline.
It feels like we need to get these in sooner than later.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve Kleppen emailed me yesterday and asked me to sit in on a meeting next Wednesday. Are you aware of this, Lexus?
Next Wednesday.
3
No,
o'clock on Wednesday? I don't know who was all invited, but he just asked if I was, and I said yes.
sounds good. I think so.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe we can try to have a first draft or an update to the Word document that I started that is going to become a Google document by then. So let's say the next week. So I have something to at least dangle in front of them, like, hey, look, we're trying. So how about that? Is that okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I'm off for a week. I'm off 18th through the 28th. So I guess I'll be back the last weekend of August.
So next week sounds good then.
Okay. Rock on. All right. Well, we're
Great.
making progress. Doesn't, perfect doesn't need to be the enemy of good. Something is better than nothing. So, all right.
Progress,
on
not
the-
perfection.
What's that?
I said progress, not perfection. I was just
Progress,
adding
not
to your,
perfect. Awesome. Sounds like something Peter would say. Okay, so next on the agenda technically is comments from staff.
No, I think I have this, where I'm done.
Okay, then I will move to adjourn the meeting. May I have a second?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Oh, I think Heather, I heard Heather first. Any discussion? I assume none. All in favor? Aye.
I,
All
Hi.
right, we're done by
Great.
8
Thank
o'clock,
you.
please.
Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
take care.